Hi, everyone. Good morning from a still snowy and chilly Washington, D.C. My name is Mark Hausman, and I'm the President and CEO of Strategic Communications Group. We have expertise in an emerging area of the market commonly referred to as web to sales. This is how companies like yours align its web presence, content creation, social media participation, search engine optimization, digital communications, and CRM with tactical sales activities. We help marketers who sell to business and government customers more quickly identify sales leads, nurture prospect relationships, and close deals. I'll be your host for this special online event entitled Confessions of a Sales Leader, What I Expect from Today's Modern Marketer. This morning, we're fortunate to be joined by Kurt Gastrock, Senior Vice President of Enterprise Sales at Neustar. During our discussion, Kurt will share more about his professional background in Neustar's business. However, what I can tell you is that in the 10 years I've known and worked for Kurt, his accomplishments as a strategist, marketer, and sales professional are both impressive and inspiring. At Neustar, Kurt has faced perhaps his most significant set of challenges. We'll talk more about that in a few moments. I also want to thank our sponsor, Vorsight BP. They provide sales training that helps companies improve top-of-the-funnel performance by their sales reps and managers in areas like prospecting and lead qualification. You can learn more about Vorsight BP by visiting their website, www.vorsightbp.com. So, before we get started, there are a couple of housekeeping items I'd like to quickly cover. First, our discussion today will run about 20 minutes, and we will then have time for Q&A. If you have a question, please enter it into the chat box in the right-hand column of your screen, and it will be sent directly to me. Second, in follow-up to today's event, we'll send you by email a replay of the discussion. You'll also be able to download a replay in the Resource Center on Modern Marketing Today at www.modernmarketingtoday.com. This is an online magazine that reports on the trends, technologies, and best practices relevant for today's marketer. So, let's now welcome in Kurt and hear some confessions of an accomplished B2B sales leader. Kurt, good morning. To get us started, can you please share with our guests your professional background and relevant accomplishments?
Sure, Mark. But first, thanks for the kind intro. It's a pleasure to be here with you and everyone who joined us on the webinar today. As far as my background, I took a relatively non-traditional path to the top sales job at Neustar. I was not born and raised in the sales silo. I've been in sales on and off through my career, but I'm actually more of a P&L guy who's happening to lead sales at this point. I started off my career as an engineer. Loved studying it, really didn't like practicing it. Turned out to be a little bit too small picture of a job for me, meaning it was interesting to be involved in design work, but when you're kind of getting to design a bolt that holds a shroud onto something, it's not particularly satisfying, or at least wasn't for me. And so I was fortunate enough to move from engineering to sales very early in my career, and sales, as many of you know, is a big picture job. You really need to understand your business, your customer's business, and have a knack for connecting the two to be successful. Fortunately, I was good at that, had a great direct sales career, built sponsorship across the organizations that I worked for, and used that as a leverage point to get myself into management. And management was not so much big picture, although that's involved, but it was more big influence. And so when I moved to management, I actually didn't move initially to sales management. I've done management in the operations arena, in the engineering arena, in sales, in the product arena. So I've managed a lot of different functions, and I realized that sort of that customer connection, big picture, big influence role was what I enjoyed. So along the way, I went back and picked up my MBA and then moved on into GM roles where I had full P&L accountability. So I've been a GM of a strategic business unit. I've been a public company COO. I've helped small companies expand their territory and position for acquisition. And so I think some of my strength is really in my awareness of all the functions of an organization and my ability to work across boundaries. And what I really crave is a challenge. And those challenges typically look like growth and transformation challenges where I'm solving a business problem and I'm fixing something. I would not describe myself as a maintainer. I like to be sort of on the steep part of the learning curve, moving things forward. And when I came to Neustar, the challenge here was that we really needed to energize our security and IT sales, but we also had a challenge with the way the company was built, that we were operating generally as a bunch of independent business units. And so part of the challenge I faced coming here was integrating those business units as well. So my current role at Neustar is SVP of Enterprise Sales, and in that role, I actually manage an outside sales team, which is more solutions-oriented, an inside sales team, which is more transaction-oriented. I manage web sales, which has a lot of marketing influence to it. I also am responsible for channel and partnerships, which is more of a business development type of role. So hope that helps with background, Mark.
It does. It's great. So as I alluded to in my introduction, as you now kind of briefly touched on, Neustar has been navigating a very exciting time in its corporate history. Can you share with our guests a little bit more about the company, its solutions, and then the company's opportunities moving forward?
Sure, Mark. So for anyone listening, if you don't know about Neustar, don't worry, you're in the majority. We actually have operated behind the scenes in the telecom space for most of our history. We got our start running authoritative data registries, most notably the number portability system. And what that caused us to be expert at was building cloud-based, massively scaled, highly performing, extremely accurate data registries that just never failed. And so Neustar's been around since about 1997 timeframe. And in our early days, we were very technology-focused, very risk-averse, almost running monopoly-like businesses. And for us, success really meant just don't screw anything up, because the customers are coming to us. As long as we don't make a mistake, we're going to continue to drive success both on the revenue and the profit lines. And so as we moved along, we actually looked for and bought and built businesses that were fairly similar to those kind of authoritative data registry spaces, things like domain registries, like common short code registries. So that was the early part of our business. And in the past 4 or 5 years, we've really been on a transformative journey. And now we actually are positioned as an information and analytics provider. So now we don't just answer authoritative questions and never fail. We actually provide insights to businesses. We have great detailed information on much of the U.S. population, names, emails, network addresses, phone numbers, physical attributes, and thousands of other attributes, I should say physical addresses, and thousands of other attributes about individuals in the U.S. And so rather than just answer a specific question, we're using that data to help inform high-value business processes. So in the marketing space, we're doing work in segmentation, verification, targeting. We do omni-channel marketing, so it's not just online, omni-channel measurement, real-time management of the marketing spend, those types of things. And in the security and IT space, we're looking at security readiness of companies, detection of threats, mitigation of attacks, analysis of security situations and attackers, and we specialize in hybrid sort of on-prem, in-cloud solutions in this space. And so that's a pretty big departure, what we do now versus where we started, and it required a pretty big cultural change for us as well. So before, where we were very monopolistic, meaning as long as we didn't fail, the customers had to come to us, now we're very sales-driven. We're client and market-focused out of necessity. We operate in a highly competitive and dynamic space with lots of competitors, actually existing competitors, new ones showing up, new ideas every day, which forces us to be bold and innovative, which is different from the cautious sort of risk takers that we were. And then finally, we've become far more analytical in our makeup, meaning rather than just knowing we could always answer the question because there was one authoritative answer, we're comfortable using data to inform decisions and input and insight to our customers, and that takes a different type of individual, a different way of running the business. So that's kind of been our transformation and where we've been going, and the result is we now have more than 50% of our revenue coming from these very dynamic information services and analytics businesses, and they're growing 3 times as fast as those core data registries business. And as a result, we are now positioned in the market as the first real-time cloud-based information services provider, and I will put the emphasis on real-time because we use our legacy of data services and those great massively scaled databases to answer in milliseconds complex questions for our customers in real time and put that marketing insight and security insight into action every day for countless challenges that our business customers face.
Kurt, so that's great. So you've mentioned a couple of interesting words. So you've talked about transformation of the business. You've talked about Neustar as a high-growth company, but you've also referenced the fact that Neustar exists in some highly competitive markets. So that, I'm assuming, creates a lot of intensity around the sales and marketing process. And as we all know, I mean, it's no secret that in many organizations there is a dysfunctional relationship between sales and marketing, and that a lot of this can be attributed to kind of a disconnect in communication and expectations and alignment. So can you share with our guests exactly what you, as a sales leader, and then even your sales organization expects of Neustar's marketers?
Yeah, I can definitely do that, Mark. And so let me go back and just reiterate that my current role actually covers a bunch of different selling channels and lanes, but the most predominant role I hold is in inside sales. And so I'll kind of target my comments there on the inside sales lane. But my message would be the expectation is really easy. My first expectation is help me drive revenue. My second is help me drive revenue. My third is help me drive revenue. If you don't get the message, here it is. I'm in this business to go out and generate sales. In order to do that, I have to acquire customers. I have to deepen and broaden my relationships with my existing customers. I have to get bookings that can turn into revenue. But what you can really do underneath the covers of that drive revenue mantra is, for an inside sales team, give me more leads. Tell me where I should be fishing. And make sure those leads are high quality. Because what I'm worried about is my sales force productivity and efficiency. Because I need those folks working every day at peak efficiency if I'm ever going to make my numbers. And so the more targeted we can be with what we do with those folks, the better. So from a marketing perspective, more leads, better quality. Educate us. Make sure we clearly understand the competitive dynamic, because it is changing fast. So we have to be on top of that. Give us good material, give us battle cards, those type of things to keep us on top of that. Make sure our positioning is on point. Help build tools for us, ROI generators, things like that, that will enable the selling process. Our customers have a lot of information about our products and services as well as our competitors, so they show up well informed. You know this. So the selling process is a little bit different. It's helping them make the case internally. And so the better we can do that for our customers, the more likely we are to win. And help them understand where we're going. Give us some futures, some vision, because they're not just wanting to buy a single-shot sort of transaction. They're wanting to engage in a partnership with a company that they think can help take them to the promised land. And finally, give us some inspiration, because sales is a very optimistic and hungry lot. Help feed them. Make them believers, because if you energize them, they can go climb mountains for you. They can do whatever you ask, but you have to keep them engaged and focused in order to get the best out of them.
Great. So let me ask you to peer into your crystal ball for a second. So you've talked extensively about Neustar's business. We've now talked a little bit about expectations of marketing and the relationship between those two different groups. You've also worked in executive management. You've worked in sales leadership positions. You've held different product roles at companies. So as you look at Neustar's business, what changes do you see in how the company positions and markets and sells its solutions? And then do you think those changes are representative of kind of what's going on in the broader B2B space?
Sure. I'll give you some thoughts around sort of the specifics of Neustar, and then I'll give some opinions about whether they're representative, but probably folks on the webinar would have as good a view on that as I would. Hopefully the knowledge of what's going on at Neustar will help frame some things up. So I mentioned Neustar sort of on an evolutionary journey. Well, when we were more of a data services provider, we didn't really have to have much sort of brand support because customers generally had to use us. So we didn't invest a whole lot there, and Neustar didn't have a whole lot of brand equity. And as we started down the path to become an information services and analytics company, we really needed to get some traction and headway before we could go sort of claim victory in the space. And we're now at a point where we are claiming victory in the information analytics space, and we're really needing to promote ourselves a little bit more. But right now, we don't really have any brand equity or recognition in the marketplace. So selling is a pure uphill battle for us because we have to introduce and explain ourselves before we get to the value that we can bring to customers. So I think in the next 12 to 18 months and beyond, Neustar will be building a lot of brand tailwinds that will help our selling efforts. And so that's a big change. We're moving, Neustar is, from an ecosystem of independent businesses, meaning everybody had their own sales, marketing. We kind of competed on a point product basis with other best-of-breed products in the market, to now being a portfolio provider. And so now we're having to rationalize what it is we do and be able to talk about that and articulate that to our customers clearly. So we talk about what we do as being promoting and protecting the online businesses of our customers. And that's great that we have a tagline for it, but really it's putting the meat on that bone and being able to show through the product portfolio and the value propositions and the integrated capabilities that we can really deliver on that promise. So part of that will be a marketing effort to reposition us in the sales lanes that we operate. And so finally, segmentation, qualification, nurturing of leads. I actually mentioned this earlier. As we create the brand tailwinds, we're likely to get more inbound activity, and that means more potential distraction to a sales force. So we have to be much better as a marketing organization at really understanding what is a quality lead, being able to segment those leads out and understand who's just looking, who's secret shopping, who's doing what, and how do we nurture those leads to get them to the point where a sales engagement is a profitable endeavor and get that into the hands of the salespeople at the right time. That's an area where we'll be focusing quite a bit. So there's some unique challenges to Neustar, but as I look at the competitive space we operate in, most of our competitors are trying to expand out more broadly in terms of their product portfolio. So I think they're going to face similar challenges of how do we position the portfolio and the full value of what we can offer in an interaction with a customer. How do we articulate that in a clear and concise way that highlights the differentiated value of what we're doing and attracts the right customers to us, the customers who care about the value we can offer? I think those are some of the things that I would encourage this audience to take away and think about and say, are we prepared for that? Is that the way we're thinking, or is this just how do we run the engine but just a bit faster? I think the engine has to run a little bit differently as we go forward, at least at Neustar.
That's an interesting point that you raised about as the company ramps up its brand marketing and other tactical lead generation activities, the potential for distraction at the sales among the sales reps becomes increased because suddenly you just have more opportunities that are coming your way. I guess it makes qualification so much more important.
Yeah, well, if you say that, Mark, because you say more opportunities, it may be more activity coming our way.
Right,
and
right.
That activity may not be opportunities, and that's really
right.
the differentiation right there.
So, Kurt, I've got two questions from our guests, and I think both are pretty good. So let me hit you with the first one here. So let me read it directly. Kurt has spoken to the importance of ongoing communication with sales reps. As a marketer, what is the best or most effective way for me to achieve this?
Okay. So here's kind of my thoughts on that, kind of at a top level. The first thing is make sure you're respecting our time. This kind of comes back to the lead qualification in a way. But if I could sum it up in a word, I'd say succinctly, right? Manage your message and frequency, because understand what we do as sales professionals. We are in the business of generating meaningful activity that can lead to opportunity, that can drive pipeline, that can put us in the deal progression process that ultimately leads to closed deals. So my best reps are always active. Anybody who takes a break generally is going to see a disruption in their productivity, maybe not immediately, but somewhere down the line. So be succinct, respect the salespeople's time, manage your message, and manage the frequency. Second, be meaningful. Make sure you're giving them something they can use, not just interesting information. Salespeople, I told you before, they're a hungry lot. A new package, a new offer, even without a new product, can be gold for them. It can energize them. It can cause them to think about who they're serving and how they're serving those customers in a different way, and it can open up new opportunities. So give something meaningful. And finally, I'd say interactively. So you need to be asking as much as you're telling. Remember that, hey, we're an information service and analytics company here at Neustar, so we love to crawl through data. But don't forget that the answers are out there in the market. They're not in here in the data that we've got. And so if you engage the sales rep, if you interact with them and don't presume that you know the answer, but position things in a way that you can gain insight from their knowledge and interaction in the market, you're going to be far more effective in your communication with the sales team.
Great, great. Very good recommendations. So second question here from one of our guests. So Kurt, our company focuses on creating content that is relevant to customers, prospects, and partners. How do you suggest I engage with our sales team to get insight on what they hear from prospects on a day-to-day basis? So I think this plays right to kind of what you were talking about in terms of interactive dialogue. I guess this guest is asking specifically, hey, how do I suck a lot of knowledge from the sales reps based on what they're talking to prospects about?
Sure. So I'll kind of go back to my background, not being sort of a traditional dyed-in-the-wool sales silo guy, but be more of a P&L guy. I always encourage that sort of cross-organization communication and interaction and participation. So I think to my team, and I have marketing folks joining my sales staff meetings, not because I need to have a marketing update, but because they can actually sit there almost as silent members of the team and passively pick up information because they can see the challenges that we're dealing with. They can see what it's like to run a sales organization. They can see the realities of the customer interactions and the obstacles we face and the objections as a sales team. They can hear about that in real time. So that'd be one way is to definitely consider joining almost as a silent member of your sales team. Second, I'd say get out there in the field. Ride along whenever possible. And this doesn't mean just go to a show or go to a conference where there are prospective customers and all sorts of competitors and peripheral products and things you can learn about. But learn the challenges firsthand. Actually sit in a customer interaction and hear what they're saying about our products. Hear what they're saying about our positioning and our competition. Hear what a salesperson has to go through in order to be successful closing a deal. It's real insight that can help, I think, in the marketing practice and process and how you apply that to be effective for the sales team. And the last thing I'll tell you is sales is a pretty confident lot as well and very competitive, but you have to challenge us. Don't just show up and give us information occasionally or give us a new glossy or a slick or whatever. Come with some new insight, even if it's controversial. Get us engaged in a debate. Test our preconceptions about what we're seeing in the market and what's going on, because we'll gladly share our thoughts and what's driving our opinions with you. And I think we get stuck in sort of a locked-in mode of doing business as well, and sometimes we need to get shaken out of that. You can help us do that by bringing those different insights, those different perspectives to the table. And we may not agree ultimately with that new insight and that challenge you brought to us, but I guarantee we'll both learn from the interaction. So that's the last thing I'd say is always be challenging us.
Kurt, this has been great. I want to personally thank you for your time this morning and for the insight that you've been able to share. I also want to thank our sponsor, Vorsight BP, for their support of today's event. Just a reminder to our guests, we will send you a replay of today's discussion by email. You can also download it at the Resource Center on Modern Marketing Today. Again, that web address is www.modernmarketingtoday.com. I'm also going to ask everyone to keep an eye on their inbox for an invitation to our next online discussion. It's going to be the morning of Wednesday, March 18th at 11 a.m., and it will feature an exclusive conversation with Jessica Desano, who is the Senior Director of Marketing at CrowdStrike. Our topic's an interesting one: sales cycle content marketing, how to engage the prospect at each point in the journey. So again, Kurt, thank you very much. I appreciate your time. I appreciate everyone joining us today, and I will wish everyone a wonderful day.
Thanks, Mark.